Fenax, now Genzin, I just wanted to speak to UDK. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I am not alone. I have my friend YST over here. How are you doing, my friend?
Yo, how's it going? Appreciate you having me on. A long time overdue. I'm excited to be here to speak some Raid. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I know we've talked quite a bit when you were streaming on Twitch, and then obviously I started the YouTube journey, and you're finally back from the YouTube stuff vacation as well. So it's been good to see you back and creating. And we are Team Queen of Hearts for the free to play challenge. So let's go. Let's go beat my rival Nubs. You know, we've. That's it's been fun to brew that. I don't know if you caught that or not, but we did both did a trivia contest, and Nub got the high score, and then I trounced him the next day. So we've got a bit of rivalry from that. So it's been fun though. Nub's a cool guy, so it's nice friendly rivalry. So I'll crush him and be nice to him afterwards. But so one of the bugaboos for these early accounts, though, is Clan Boss. And you are definitely one of the Clan Boss experts that people talk about, especially for a lot of the early game unconventional stuff. And I thought it'd be great to talk to you. I've actually not done a lot of Clan Boss content, and I figured I would bring an expert on to chat about things. I know one of the things we were talking about is some of the early free-to-play accounts have chosen Terogi, so I think that's actually probably a good starting point. Why is Terogi the Clan Boss choice for this competition?
I guess like when it comes down to it, it's the ally protection and the self-healing effects, right? And then the decrease attack A1 and a poison to deflect poisons back to the boss. Passive, sorry. Yeah, I think this overall fundamentally definitely one of the best epics in the game when you refer to Clan Boss, and being able to have that shield for someone like an Underpriest Brogni to grow, or he's just got so many teams that he can fit into. Yeah, I think that's one of the main. I think Hell Hades actually went with Terogi, and it's a cool that you can't say it's a trash one for sure, because everyone wants a Terogi, right?
Yeah, I mean he's one of the best ally protectors in the game for Clan Boss specifically, but he's a beast everywhere, obviously. But yeah, that decrease attack is very consistent. Yeah, it says it's only a 40% chance, but since it's on the A1, he's constantly doing the A1, and it's a 2-turn cooldown, so you only need to land it once. And then that self-heal is massive. It's a massive self-heal, and as the ally protector, you're taking more damage, although for Clan Boss, and I guess that's always the thing, the ally protection on Clan Boss doesn't scale up with all the rest of the damage. So when we talk about how ally protection is so critical in the later stages of the game, the reason is that you're basically cutting the damage down that you're taking by, 50, 60, 100, not 100%, but, it is so huge to take down that much damage with that ally protection. But yeah, that kind of highlights. So, I mean, early on, what are some of the big debuffs that you're looking for and buffs you're looking for Clan Boss early on?
Just quickly on Terogi, actually, while we're just on that as well, before we get into that. I think like one issue that I had, because I remember having Terogi on the free to play last year. The one issue I had with him that I'm anxious to see how Hades takes actually is the survivability so early on in terms of gear. Like everyone is so damn squishy. You can't really scale to the stats to maybe keep them alive and soak up those hits, right? That's going to be a task for sure. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, for traditional style teams, Terogi is up there, a million percent. But I guess in terms of some other debuffs, always number one, decrease attack. We need to survive that. We've got this on Terogi as well, which is cool. And then we're also looking for decreased defense and weakens, because we want to enhance the damage that we're dealing. So they're definitely ones that I'm always looking for. And from an epic standpoint, maybe someone like, Spider you got on the screen. There's stuff like Stagnite out there, There's a good few options that bring multiple of these effects for one. Actually, another really good option is Fane, Soy Ren from the Shadowkin faction. She's a bit of an underrated one. There's loads around that brings these effects. Yeah.
Duck is a great one. He's got the decreased attack and decreased defense-based champion as well. Very nice. All kinds of really, really good ones. And that's actually one of the reasons that it's, kind of a shame that Rosin's been power crept. But this being an absolute nuke and decreased defense and weaken on a single attack has been one of the reasons Rosin is still a champion I recommend for a lot of early game, especially if you're
Yeah,
looking for a force-based nuker, because I know there's like a lot of the unkillable teams need a force-based nuker to work properly as well. And
yeah.
just so clutch with both of these for adding much damage. In fact, do you prefer weaken or decrease defense early on?
I think I prefer the weaken early on, enhance the damage. I think then I can't remember the exact point. I think it kind of switches around, and then the decreased defense or the weaken becomes a bit more valuable. I think after like nightmare, perhaps. Can't recall. It's been so long.
It's either nightmare
But
or brutal where that kind of switches a little bit, but it's so
yeah,
close on both of those where it's and honestly either one you're not going to turn down decreased defense if that's what you've got. So
yeah, you take what you're given. But
yep.
obviously, the two is the most optimal that we want to carry into all teams up to Ultra Nightmare.
Yeah, and then the honorable mention for some of that stuff, especially if you're stacking. Well, there's two honorable mentions that, and Direct Star probably not the best example of this, but HP Burn is actually a really big one as well because it
Hmm.
does much more damage than the individual poisons. It does 75k as opposed to the 20k, I think. So very very good if you can get the HP Burn. Obviously, you're not going to give that up for poisons because you can stack a lot more poisons versus the burn, but HP Burn, very, very helpful. And then if you've got a ton of poisons, you've got champions like, what's not Demon Spawn, that's Undead. You've got your Frozen Banshees and a couple of other ones as well that can bring that poison sensitivity. And 25% extra damage from all your poisons can really stack up really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, poison's definitely it's the reason why players lean towards the Kale at the very start. And as someone that's done the free to play series from the standpoint of every starter champion at this point, Kale to me does feel like the one that accelerates an account. Like Dragon, the clan boss that we're speaking about today, just the raw damage, even at rank 50, is just outperforming everybody. So, some players don't get the luxury of pulling a really cool poisoner for a long time, right?
Mhm.
It's just all our RNG. So having one from the jump will definitely increase your damage.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of interesting too. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Kale, his AI will actually prioritize this over his AoE nuke. And in fact, I think he doesn't do his AoE nuke against the clan boss, which is kind of interesting, but actually probably what you
Yeah.
want because this poison here can add a lot of damage compared to this nuke. So,
Yeah. And then you get the 10-meter fills that can throw you off the speed-ins as well, right?
well, he's not
But
killing anybody, so he's not going to actually. I mean, unless he
oh, is
kills
it
the
not
clan
killing
boss.
it? Okay.
Yeah, it's only if he kills
Ah.
somebody with that. So,
See, when I was doing the campaign, I thought it was just like, or maybe it's because I'm killing everybody. There we
yeah.
go. Kills OP. Let's go.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's the only starter that does this, which is, I think, the reason that he
Yeah.
really is the best starter. But not the video we're making, but still kind of nice there too. Obviously, let's move into the buffs because certainly there's some important buffs. Terogi has the big one, which is that ally protection. And again, we're
Yeah.
talking early clan boss team. So yes, unkillable is absolutely amazing. Yes, block damage is absolutely amazing. You're not building
Yeah.
those teams until you're getting to at least nightmare under most cases. You might, maybe you have it and you'll throw it in clan boss. And obviously, if you've got a man eater, even if an untuned man eater is going to be helpful in clan boss because every once in a while somebody doesn't die because of that man eater. That's awesome. But
Hmm.
for the progression, you got ally protection, which is really probably the number one. What's next?
I'll go with obviously increased defense is one, but also strengthen, guys. Like strengthen is so incredibly powerful. I cannot exaggerate how important it is for a traditional clan boss team. Like take someone like Morak is a very good example for an epic that brings a strengthen on a 3-turn cooldown from the dwarfs.
Yep.
Um, yes, champions of this caliber, and then obviously later on you get Mithrala, Life Banes, and Shield Bust. But that A2 there, it's the only epic in the game with a 3-turn cooldown, 2-turn strengthen. She's got ally attack. She's defense based. These kind of champions are the ones that can really help you. I remember I'm not sure if you watched the Clan Boss draft, I think 2 years ago now, and Hell Hades actually won it because of Morak. It was the strengthen, kept him alive for so damn long.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess a strengthen, increased defense, shields, really nice to absorb some damage. The ally protections, like you mentioned, I'd say those are like the four crucial buffs that we're looking for.
Yeah,
in terms of
and then,
support.
you know, things that are nice to have, you've got counterattack, and
Yeah.
counterattack, there's not a lot of champions that do that. You've got Valkyrie, who brings the huge shields as well. I mean, Valkyrie is just so clutch because, you know, back before we had a lot of these unkillable teams, Valkyrie was like the queen of clan boss, Valkyrie and Martyr, because of these counterattacks and these huge
Hmm.
shields. But, you know, you get a Skull Crusher. Skull Crusher early on gives you the counterattack on 4-year champions and that ally protection. Very, very good champion as well. Shields, I guess, are not to be underrated as well, because anytime you can cut down the damage you're going to be taking, you're lasting that much longer. And since that's a very easy resource to get back every few turns, those shields can be absolutely great.
Yeah, I think like another really cool thing that you guys should be considering is at the start, of course, we're all looking towards that lifesteal gear. We want to heal by the damage we inflict. But if we just go into actually Hitatsu from the Shadowkin faction is a good example of this. We've got leech debuffs, right? And being able to heal by 18% of the damage inflicted, especially if you're scaling with your War Master and your Giant Slayer. I'm sure we'll touch on Masteries in a second, but you know, being able to scale with the damage you inflict, and then now you can move away from that life steal, start stacking stuff like
Mhm.
Stalwart and Defiant, reducing AoE damage. Once you start layering these foundations for your team, you're starting to reduce the damage you take. You're starting to reduce the damage that, yeah, they take, and then also the amount you're dishing out as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that, and then also auras. You know, defense auras is phenomenal if you can get it.
Yeah, definitely the aura. It's got to be an all arena or all everywhere aura, but
Yeah.
those auras are definitely not to be trifled with as well. Extra HP orders can, you know, help you survive. Defense auras can help you get the defense targets you're looking for. You know, attack auras can certainly add additional damage. Speed auras can help you get more turns in. All of these are viable ways to get those teams in. And that's really, you know, always the trick too, is do you go with a defense based team? And early on, I think actually the better play is to go with a fast team, because the clan
Yeah.
boss is really early on very, very slow. So getting your champions to be 180 speed, 200 speed, you're almost 2 to 1ing the boss without
Hmm.
having to survive very long. So he doesn't ramp his damage up fast enough to kill you before you've done your damage.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction I'm taking the free to play right now. Like, you know, putting obviously a very good example, but this is like end game stuff. Is like Senna Amberheart on my main account from the dwarfs. Like, I built a team for Ultra Nightmare, which is not speed tuned at all, like zero speed tune, and I do like as much damage as I can in the shortest amount of time as possible, and we do like 200 million within 30, 40 turns. And you know, if you're able to like stack all of these turn meter champions, especially in the early game, you're just outlapping this boss so much, even unspeed tuned. But of course, the end goal is we want to speed tune our teams, right? We want consistency. But yeah, this is actually a really cool champion if anyone's got it
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. That she right around when you were talking about her, I put her on one of my most wanted lists videos as well. And then you did a video and it was like, oh yeah, she is as good as I thought she was going to be, and not better. She
Yeah,
is absolutely
I
amazing.
think she's probably, in my opinion, the best turn meter champion in the game, alongside Los and Calef that just got released, the faction
Yeah,
Unity dude. I think them two are comparable of the best 10 meter champions in the game in terms of how many times you can enable it and the value you get from it, which is pretty cool.
yeah. He's kind of nuts. The fact that they had to nerf him like 2 days after he came out is kind of
What did
funny.
they actually? What did they do to it? I'm not
He doesn't.
on.
He no longer affects his own turn meter, is what they're going to do with the next patch. Because we can
Ah.
blame Bronco for this, although, you know, no, I'll much love Bronco. You're not trying to get him nerfed at all, but Bronco literally built a team where one of the champions on his team never took a turn, and Hydra never took a turn, because with the
Oh, I think I've seen a screenshot on that. Okay.
yeah, because basically the he does the HP balance, or the turn meter balance, and the Hydra balances, and they're balanced in just below his people, and his people are all faster. And then Losin was also faster than his Shamael. Now the
Hmm.
team was highly suspect, because I think it was like it was 4 reset champions for 1 turn reset. So it wasn't a team that was going to do a ton
Okay.
of damage, but it was, you know, Shamael, a bunch of reset teams, and Losan, and that was it. So, but yeah, it's just kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, turn meter is definitely very important. Getting that 2 to 1 ratio if you can. We talk about that a lot.
Hmm.
The more turns you take, the easier it is to do damage before you die. Both if you're unkillable and just getting to 50 turns, but honestly, before the clan boss even ramps up. The other thing I think that's a little underrated for early game accounts, I know for the longest time on my main, I actually ran with Rector Drath in my clan boss, and I didn't even have her with enough accuracy for this decrease attack, although I had Tyrell on the team, so that helped. But
Hmm.
Veils help decrease the amount of damage you're taking by quite a bit against the AoEs, and having an emergency revive can keep you in the fight that much longer. But champions like this, or champions like a Syl, or champions that bring extra healing, much like you talked
Hmm.
about the Leech, extra healing in Clan Boss is extra turns that you wouldn't have taken otherwise when your champions are passing away.
Yeah. 100%. And even like continuous heals, block debuffs, like all of these kind of positive effects that you can bring into the team is really going to help you out. Like even I remember, even for allied protection, if you don't have someone like Terogi, I remember using Miscreated Monster. Like he's on the
Hmm.
screen right now. Like even that alone, like he's got a self healing effect with allied protection, and we got shields from the A2. There's a lot of cool things to like about many champions. Like, and of course, when you go into the legendary, we're talking about the verse of the Grims, and there's like so many more powerful options. But it's cool to see that they are available throughout the rarities. Sepulchre, another
Yep.
phenomenal choice.
Increased
Yeah.
defense and block debuffs, which I think is one we may have not actually talked about, but block debuffs, especially later on when you're tuning for the stuns and you don't want the right stuns to happen to the right people, block debuffs is so, so clutch. And it's certainly nice with some of the reflect damage effects that you can get out there. Obviously, reflect damage as a buff is probably not a good option, but you get yourself a Geomancer. Everyone knows how cool Geomancer is, but that reflect
Hmm.
damage is really good. And I think the thing that people underrate with Geomancer's reflect is he's also reducing the damage you're taking with this burn as well, which is really part of the reason why he is so, so good in Clan Boss. Venom Mage, another good example of an underrated extra passive that you don't think about. The 15% less damage for champions under heal reduction, that is absolutely
Yep.
huge because 15% less damage might be the difference between one entire extra round of attacks or your team getting wiped.
Yeah, it's crazy. I literally had it on my notes there, like Venomage, Geomancer damage reduction, paired out with stuff like ally protection, strengthen, shields, increased defense,
Mhm.
counterattack. Once you start layering these, like you're hardly taking any damage on your team, and you will last a very long time. But of course, it all comes with stats and all
Yeah, I
that
mean,
good stuff.
obviously you're
But
cheating a little bit when you're talking about Duchess, but honestly, Duchess and Clan
yeah,
Boss early, this 25% AoE damage reduction is huge. And yes, he might end up killing somebody with the one stun, but you're lasting so much longer with these turns, and if you can last 3 turns with Duchess, Duchess can bring him back.
yeah. And then you got the perfect veils as well. Yeah, there's loads of ways to lay this up. But I guess like one last thing, we got ally attacks. I think Farrakhan the Fat, very good choice of that because
Yep.
we got loads of cool debuffs. We got
Morag again,
poison.
as you mentioned.
Yeah, we got poison's ally attack, increased crit rate, increased crit damage. So many cool things for
Yeah,
Farrakhan the Fat. If
yeah.
anyone's got the luxury of that, for sure.
Fat Man is great. His biggest problem is he's got this weird damage spreading ability, which means you can build him not quite as tanky, but you got to make sure that everyone else is not going to be squishy either, because he will kill the rest of his team if you're not careful with him as well. But otherwise, he's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Ally protect just for that belly button. He loves it.
yeah, on my alt, I was actually super happy. I got my alt right after the person that had given that account up got Helicath, and I actually
Hmm.
built the supercharged Helicath team, which was a lot of fun. It's an unkillable team that runs off of his block damage here, and then his shield for the stun, because this shield is absolutely huge. And it was actually kind of fun because I used Helicath, I had used Tatura for the block debuffs, and Tatura, a very underrated champion in Clan Boss as well, I think. But and then I had two
Hmm.
ally attackers because I'd had a Kira the Watcher, not Kira the Watcher, the who's the orc one I'm thinking of, Kreela, Kreela.
Okay.
I had a
Yeah.
Kreela and a Fat Man, and then I think I had Frozen Banshee, I think was my damage dealer or something like that, to have a rare in the team, and it managed a one key clan boss with, I think I had to do 1 turn unique on turn 2 in order to make it work, and was
Hmm.
a fun kit. And it's you can do these total unkillable teams. You can make teams that are going to survive to 50 turns, even on Ultra Nightmare, without the block damage champions. They certainly help a ton, but you certainly can. But obviously, early on, you just want to get as high as you can, do as much damage you can. So I definitely hope that some of these tips on champions you're looking for, any You know, we talked about Frozen Banshee is a really good one early on. And I do want to mention Frozen Banshee is a very good champion, but the problem that Frozen Banshee has is she only gets her poisons out if poison sensitivity is up. So you
She's
get the
definitely a
most
lot
of
better in she's a lot better in counterattack situations
yeah,
because you can get the sensitivity out and even ally attacks like and then you're just proccing it more and more with the A1 throughout the turns. But I felt like even last year when I used it on the free to play, you know, if you've only got like a 1-to-1 ratio speed tune, you're not able to get enough poisons to sanction needing this, in my opinion.
yeah.
So
The other
yeah.
reason that this would be good is if you have a second poisoner on the team, then this poison sensitivity then becomes again more valuable. But yeah, eventually you're probably going to want to swap her out for somebody, you know. Obviously, we mentioned Terogi. Jareg is actually a good example. Somebody who came up in the last video that I immediately forgot about. Jareg is actually one of the more popular ones because he's got the
Mhm.
increased defense as well. Actually, I guess we should talk a little bit about stat targets too, because we certainly can. Um, for defense, I think you're looking to get your defense with this increased defense ability. You're looking to get about 4,000, 4,200. I think is kind of the target because
I
that's
always
after
aim
that's
in
when
the
it kind of falls
ballpark.
off.
Yeah, I usually aim for around 4.2k defense is my benchmark when I used to build the traditional teams with increased defense. Yeah.
Yeah, and so with the 60%, I think that's around 2,400. I think is where that is without having done the math beforehand. So you know, obviously, do pay attention to your defense, and it's a huge difference. And actually, it's a huge difference really early on. The difference between 1,500 and 2,000 defense is huge. The difference between 4,000 and 4,400 is nowhere near as much because the way
Diminishing
defense
returns for
works.
sure. Yeah.
But definitely do not do that. In fact, you're better off going with an HP or a defense chest on some of your damage dealers, sacrificing a little bit of that damage and making it 4 to 5 more turns than you are going with that attack chest and getting as much attack as you possibly can out early.
Hmm.
So, any other
And then
stat tips or general suggestions, or even
um
champions you kind of want to call out to look for early on?
some champions that I always look for, like number one is obviously Venomage Geomancer for me is always on the hit list. Fane, you know, Fane from the Skinwalkers, she's bringing in a lot of fundamentals that I really like decreased defense, weaken, poisons, decreased
Mm-hmm.
attack. Like you can't go wrong with Fane. The ally attacks, the protection, mainly just like for me, I always look for usually this series I'm taking a bit of a different angle. I'm going for like the Terminator manipulators, like the Deacons and
Mm-hmm.
the champion just had there, but usually just to last a very long time and just getting to Ultra Nightmare for like a 3 to 4 key, I just like to stack all of the buffs like I mentioned. Increase defense, strengthen, a nice 1-to-1 ratio speed tune with some damage reflection from a Geo. That you can never go wrong with a team like that for an entry level team if you've got the luxury of those champions. It's just that I remember I did a video on, I think it was years ago now. It was the power of damage mitigation, and I did a little test where I pretty much stacked every single protective buff in the game onto a 1-to-1 ratio speed tune to see how long I would last. And it went like way past 100 turns, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it was like, I was like, damn, like you can do all of this with just epics. It really surprised me. So, yeah, I guess it just shows the power of how much it can stack up if you can do it.
Yeah, and to be fair too, you can also go overboard with this. I've done this before too. I didn't remember what it was for. It was some sort of competition. A couple of us had challenged us to do. I think it was an all faction team, and I ended up having to do an all lizardmen team. And I did a
Oh
double
no.
Jareg team, and it was okay. The biggest problem I had with it, and to be fair, it was because I was limited to all lizardmen, I didn't have a lot of other flexibility. But because I had
Hmm.
to do double Jarek, I had to get them to the right speed. I had to have them basically alternating. And I think I did effectively the two towers team with ally protection instead of unkillable. And it did okay, but you can also go a little too overboard on all this protection. So at some point in
Hmm.
time, you do need to make sure you've got at least one damage dealer on the team, and it's nice to have some of those debuffs. If you don't have a poisoner, toxic set's a great way to add a little bit of extra stuff. You're probably going to have a ton of it if you're farming a lot of dragon anyway. It's not the end all if you don't do that, but toxic set's a really really good set. Um, you know,
Yeah,
Guardian is certainly a good set to throw on somebody to mitigate damage if you got somebody that heals themselves particularly well. You can use sets to your advantage too.
Yeah, I always use Guardian on my protectors. It's just something like they're already absorbing damage, and if you start pairing Guardian on multiple champions and everyone's absorbing damage for each other, you can actually survive a pretty long time. It's a cool concept because where it absorbs 10% of damage dealt to all allied champions, then heals as well. But once you start stacking that in a sort of protective team, it's just crazy the amount of results you can get from it. But it's just hard to get the stats you want and the amount of gear from farming damage Doom Tower. But I guess while you're in the champion screen, like Masteries also
Yep.
super duper important. Like I actually had someone ask me in stream yesterday, um, like, oh, how important is it to get a 6-star for Masteries? I'm like, it's the most one of the most important things. Like your damage will just go boom. Like
Yeah,
War Master, Giant Slayer, like
mhm. Yeah, I did a takeover for somebody that was struggling with a 2 or 3 key. It was a 3 key Ultra Nightmare team. And I was like, why is your team 3 key? This makes no sense. And then I found out that he had 250s in the team still because he didn't think that he needed to make them 6-stars. And almost none of them had masteries. I mean, War Master, especially if you have an unkillable team that's going 50 turns, I found War Master added 1.5 million to my easy run when I'm not even going 20 turns. War Master is so much extra damage. But it's not just that, you know, even if you're not critting, the 5% extra crit rate, better than nothing. 10% crit damage, better than nothing. Life
Life
Drinker
Drinker.
is underrated for the amount of healing it gives you. And Life Drinker actually heals based off of this War Master. Same with if you're using Leech or Lifesteal gear. That's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely huge. Obviously, if you're doing a tuned clan boss team, avoid things like Cycle of Magic. There's all basically, if you're doing a tuned team, you want to avoid anything that increases turn meter. So, like, you know, Arcane Celerity is the one that can get a lot of people here. 30% chance to screw your turn meter up by 10% if a debuff goes away. And this is the type of one that won't, you know, it might not break until like turn 20, but it will break at some point in time because eventually you'll stack up
Yeah,
enough of these
literally.
things. And it's
Like
so
when
hard to
someone watches a
troubleshoot too.
video, when people watching videos, and then sometimes it comes like, oh, why isn't it working? Or, why is
Mhm.
my team breaking? 9 times out of 10, there's a mastery over here that's messing you up, or it's just was it direct speeds, certain speeds? But what's the word I'm trying to?
Oh, True
True
Speed,
speeds.
yes.
There we go. Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
and that's
True
where
speeds
Laura.
is
That's one of the
Laura
confusions about
Steel.
Laura Steele. There, Laura Steele
Yeah,
is a great mastery. I recommend it when you can do it. If you have stats that you need to improve, but you always have to worry about, especially with the tunes, when you're talking about these high end tunes where you've got like a 2 speed range. But it's not even a 2 speed range. It's like a 1.5 speed range because if you're just that 1% slower,
yeah.
this Laura Steele can make a difference. But Laura Steele's only a problem if you're using something else that increases your speed on your sets themselves. And I think that's
Like
something that I know a
perception,
lot of people get.
speed.
Yeah, perception, speed. Now, not instinct, but I've got it on my Mikage. The
Yeah, I guess like when you guys
impulse.
are
Yeah.
like making your first speed tunes, maybe you're on deadwoodjedi.com, you're looking for some teams that you want to build, you've put the speeds together, you're like, damn, why is it not working? Always check the true speeds. Check input the gear that you've got on your champions. Make sure you're looking at your masteries, double checking. Do I have Lord of Steel? Do I have Cycle of Magic? Have I got my presets correct? Because if you've got like a clashing of abilities where there's one on a 4 turn, there's one on a 3 turn, you got Cycle of
Mhm.
Magic on, and you first priority the wrong skill, you're now throwing your tune off. Like there's loads of little
Yep.
things that can go wrong for your team if you don't focus on those.
Yeah, I highly recommend, and obviously early game you're not going to be doing any live arena, but I recommend do not really build much into this Demon Lord stuff. You'll see. I don't even know why I threw this 2% in here. I think I was just throwing it in there because I had stuff at some point. But I've actually dealt with accounts that have like this +2 speed, and I had to rebuild every champion because I didn't realize they had +2 speed here. And it's so easy to overlook this. Now,
Same thing with empowerment, right?
yeah,
Like the empowerment, the faction guardians, like these things, they give you speed, and you're like, wait a second, why is my team not working anymore? And it's just you've maxed this up when you've created a speed tune already, so you just
yep.
have to make up for that. But
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's one of these things. You know, I can't tell you how often a patch happens or a shard of. In fact, it's more often a shard event. A shard event happens, and then suddenly a bunch of people are posting in Reddit. did they break the speed tune for Clan Boss? My tune isn't working anymore. And it's always either
Yeah.
somebody empowered somebody and didn't think about it, or they have put somebody in Faction Guardians that they didn't think about. So you always need to be aware once you're tuned. Now, obviously, again, early game, you're not tuning your team. You're basically putting your team together. The tune might be an afterthought, but because these champions you're going to be using absolutely everywhere, you're not going to be tuning them. And I guess that's really probably my biggest advice, I think, especially early game, but even for the late game. When you pick a champion for your clan boss team, make sure you don't just pick a champion that's going to be the best in clan boss, but you should pick a champion that's not going to hurt your account that you put them in that clan boss team. You know, if you've got
Yeah.
a Myth Air or a Myth Fu, for example, whatever DPS you put in that is probably going to be too slow for a lot of other content. So you're basically
Hmm.
saying that DPS is going in that team, and I'm not going to be using them in much other content outside of maybe Faction Wars.
Yeah, like even especially from the free to play standpoint, like, we don't get a 6-star champion every day. We're not spending that cash in the
Mm-hmm.
shop. Treating ourselves to some chickens. So I guess like when I'm choosing a champion for me personally, I'm like, okay, if I can build this for Clan Boss, how much other areas can it fulfill for now as well? Like, are they going to be good in Doom Tower in this build? Are they going to be good in, Arena in this build? And that way you could kind of progress in so many different areas whilst also progressing in Clan Boss. Because to me, speed tuning is not really important until maybe trying a 1-key nightmare into Ultra Nightmare. That's when you need to start thinking about it. Before that, it's just, bring in the stats that you need, get the debuffs out there that's required, and once you get that 1-key nightmare, start speed tuning, and good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons I actually like the Bat Eater, which is what I'm running on my main here, is that Draco is my damage dealer. And Draco, definitely a wonderful damage dealer for Clan Boss, obviously end game. But the fact that Draco needs to be about 220-ish speed means I can use
Hmm.
him anywhere still as both a
Yeah.
damage dealer and a debuffer. He's got enough accuracy because he needs them for the Clan Boss as well. So Bat Eater makes a nice, easy to build team that also has champions you can still use in other places because they're going to be fast enough to use in other places. Whereas the Myth Air, your damage dealer can be, 160 to 180 speed, and that's certainly going to be problematic for using them in other locations. That's actually one of the big problems with using Geo in Clan Boss. Geo is so powerful that if you relegate him to Clan Boss, you're sometimes missing out on other locations you'd actually really like to use him for, and you can't without having to rebuild him constantly. Ninja was always one
Yeah.
of the good ones for that too. Ninja was so powerful in Clan Boss. He's really a great Clan Boss champion. But using him in Clan Boss meant that you had to tune him for Clan Boss, which meant he wasn't going to be used anywhere else for the most part, unless you're using him in like a Bat Eater where he's going to be reasonably fast.
Yeah, like
So,
even nowadays, like obviously nowadays we've got blessings, empowerment, we've got faction guardians, we've got relics. There's so much power creep in the
mhm.
game where it might be a little bit easier over time to get into Ultra Nightmare, I guess, than it was before. And you might not have to rely on block damage unkillable. Like we've seen at Wixwell. If anyone pulls a Wixwell, you can build like a super easy Ultra Nightmare team. And
Mhm.
yeah, look at the stat blow. If you just pull a 5-star soul, get some brimstone out there, some cruelty, the
Yep.
stuff just starts to stack. So
And of course, the 6-star
yeah.
souls and other ways you can throw off your team too. It's like, oh no, my team's not working anymore, and you got a 6-star
Yeah, you gotta
soul.
reduce that.
And that's actually a great one too. Is and a good reason to get a legendary with accuracy in Clan Boss. I know that I was struggling to get the 1-key consistently, and then they came out with souls. And a 1-star soul on
Hmm.
Dracomorph was all I needed to push to a consistent 1-key everything for Clan Boss with my Bat Eater. And obviously, I've since then improved my Great Hall, which is another good one to deal with too. Accuracy in Great Hall, wonderful. Don't underestimate crit damage. Crit damage is, you know, the second best stat in the Affinity Great Hall here, because everybody that's going to be doing damage is it. For Clan Boss, crit damage adds a ton of damage there as well. Obviously, then third is probably HP or defense, because those are both pretty universal.
Hmm.
So, but don't scrimp on these things as well. So, doing your arena can actually help you in Clan Boss. Even the arena bonuses as well. Keeping yourself in as high a gold as you can. helps you, you know, get those extra stats. And for early on, any extra stat is helpful in Clan Boss.
Yeah, 100%.
So awesome. So hopefully, I know it's kind of been a rambly video, but it's actually kind of nice to have one of these just kind of chat and talk about some things. And I think this would be really, really helpful for folks that are just starting in Clan Boss. Obviously, we've not given a specific, here's your key Clan Boss strategy, but there are so many champions to go over. There are so many different speed tunes. I mean, Deadwood Jedi, MTG's got a website that's got some of these tunes as well. There's a bunch of other researchers. I think Ayumi Love's got some. There are multiple websites where you can check out some of these things. Does HellHades.com have one yet, or have they just left that to the experts because other ones
No,
have been
we
doing
got
it?
Deadwood.
You got Deadwood.
Deadwood's the yeah.
So
For the calculator, yeah.
But yeah, so definitely appreciate having you on. If you guys are not aware, YST is one of the writers for hellhades.com along with Nubs. So if you don't like the ratings on there, blame him. And there's a lot of stuff to go over there. And honestly, you know, it's a lot of everything's an opinion. Don't you know, we're giving you some of our best options here, but at the same time, if you find a strategy that works for you, use what works for you, because every account's going to play differently. And, you know, go check out his channel. We did a video on some underrated epics. Some of them were mentioned for Clan Boss, so I think that'll be kind of fun. Check that out below. Any other final words for the folks?
I just appreciate you having me on. It's been a long time overdue, and happy we managed to actually speak about some Clan Boss. You know, it's been a long time. I think because Clan Boss is more legacy content, it's not spoken about enough. And I think in light of the free-to-play series, hopefully some people that's been struggling can at least get a grasp of some fundamentals and what they're looking for. So yeah, I appreciate you getting me involved in this one.
Yeah, and it really is one of these things where, like, you know, new Clan Boss teams are not as exciting as they used to be because there's so many ways to enable Clan Boss now. But there's also an influx of new players every January. There tends to be, and then the free to play, a bunch of people are trying to figure out new stuff. And I think it's just kind of nice every once in a while to go over the fundamentals. So it's definitely nice having you on. So, you know, hit that like button over here and over there. Smash that subscribe button. I really appreciate all the love and support that you guys have. This community is awesome. The fact that I can have all these wonderful content creators on and we can chat and, you know, this is a great, great community. I don't think I've actually seen an internet community that is as loving and caring as the Raid community. And I know I'm pretty sure you feel that too. And it's content creators like this guy over here that, you know, keep it friendly, keep it real, and I appreciate all that stuff. So, yeah, stop in over on his channel as well. We'll take care and see you guys in the next video. I'm Bront CatHerder. He's YST.